No, shortbread. Shortbread. What the hell is this?
Oh, you're taking the piss.
This is unbelievable.
I mean, shortbread.
Some shortbread. Maybe breakfast. He'd be like, this is
Mm.
incredible. Like, I can't believe that. Here I come.
We have, I'm very pleased about this, a question from Matt.
Hey guys, this is Matt McLeod here, and I just wanted to first say that you're welcome for using the correct channel this time. But I wanted to ask you guys how to optimize your scaling for digital courses. However, I've got quite a few one-to-one coaching clients, and I don't want to hire more coaches. I don't want to go the membership route. I would love to build a lower tier course, and then potentially, which I already have, which is the Fat Loss Accelerator. It's my 6-week course. After my initial 10-day challenge, they are upsold into the Fat Loss Accelerator. But then I would also love to create a flagship course that would be maybe even more extensive in the $500 to $1,000 range. That could be 6 months, a year long, something like that. However, I just want to remain a company of one for the most part and try to scale using digital courses and leverage primarily organic content, ads, and email marketing. All right. Thank you. See ya.
Nice.
Okay.
So,
Good question.
very much. Matt, thank you for using
Thank you, Matt.
the SpeakPipe, which is the tool that we have on our website where you can ask us a question.
That's what Isa calls his phone.
I'm just going to have a little go on the
SpeakPipe.
So in short, the question is, how can you scale a digital offering while staying as lean as possible, build out some kind of upsells on the back end, but without having to hire more coaches and create more of a messy business?
And I think he said he wanted to avoid. So he has one-to-one coaching clients now. He wants to avoid a membership option, and he wants to just sell like low ticket and slightly mid ticket one-off transactions, one-off courses. How do you scale that with ads, email marketing, and organic? Is that the question?
What you're describing there, Matt, is a business model that a lot of big people in the industry use. Oh, maybe you've just felt a change in the force field there. Johnny has managed to change his t-shirt in that time.
And the lighting.
And the lighting. I wonder what's happened. Basically, we had some technical problems halfway through that last episode. So let's just pick up where we left off, because obviously from your perspective, there's been no time travel at all. Now, Matt, your question was...
The break in continuity where we pretend to remember the question from the day before, but actually we can't. So, Matt, your question was...
Makes us look like we've got dementia here. So
it was, how do you scale it with email marketing, ads, and organic following?
Yeah. So the model that you're describing, Matt, is something that there's a couple of people in the industry use. Athlean-X and KinoBody are two very successful people that have this kind of funnel where they've got large organic following. They sell a front-end product that's a one-off thing for about $50. It's usually a 6-week program or something of that sort. For Athlean-X, it's very much kind of rehab-y type stuff, and he's got some physique stuff as well. So it'll be something with a defined remit. So like a back pain program or an arms program or something. They would either be upsold, laterally sold, or sold onto some kind of low-end continuity thing. And that's all done through their nurture sequence and email funnel. So it can be done. Obviously, the problem is that they can make it work because they have huge organic followings and they don't need to worry so much about cost per acquisition of a customer. But if you don't have a close to infinite pool of people to draw from, then you run into the issue of exhausting your audience and having to start running ads. And at that point, I don't think we've ever been able to consistently get a £50 one-off product to work purely through ads?
I think you hit the nail on the head really, where it's two, or there's three numbers really to look at. So one of them is the cost to acquire a customer through an ad channel if you wanted to go down that route. The other one is the day one cash, so the transaction value on the first transaction, and then the third number is the lifetime value of that person, right? So those are the numbers you can play with. As you said, someone like Athlean-X, for example, Keto Body initially, or even like some of the modern day like influencers on social media, they can do that because there is no cost to acquire, right? Or the cost to acquire is time. And through a lot of these platforms like YouTube, like a podcast, or even like Twitter, really, once something's off, it's off. Like once a video is getting 1 million views, it's going to keep getting views and you'll keep making sales. And it's pretty much 100% gross profit, right? In other words, there's no cost associated with fulfilling that service, or with selling that service, with selling that product. So they can do that. They can do it at high volume. If you're trying to do that with ads and you just run through the maths of it and say, well, these ad platforms charge you a CPM, so a cost per 1,000 impressions. That's like the cost of running ads on the internet. You can't really influence that number too much. That then determines your cost per click. And then your cost per click is really going to determine like, what can you do with that? If you're paying £1 a click and you get a 1% conversion on your sales page, which is pretty damn good, by the way, it's going to cost you £100 or $100 to make a sale. If your product is £50, that's a £50 loss on day one, right? So you're in the negative to begin with, which means the onus is on the back end of the business or something else to drive the lifetime value up. And also, if you do that at any kind of scale, you need to be able to sustain a £50 or $50 loss on every transaction that you make. In summary, if you're trying to run this stuff with ads, there are really two options. One is to go down the high ticket route, right? Because you're maximizing day one cash. That is very appealing. It gets promoted by a lot of coaches. I think there's a lot of downsides to it. We discussed that in other episodes. The other way to do it is to go after just try and break even on day one, okay, or as close to break even as you can, deliver a really good service and have a recurring product that then builds up the lifetime value. And also you're pouring people into this model. So you acquire 30 customers for $3,000, let's say, or $6,000 in total. But those people then pay you monthly over and over and over and over again. That's why we arrive at that situation. That's what we teach. And that's, I think I would look at it, Matt, as like, rather than I want to make this model work, view it as I want my business to look like this, or I want my income to be this, or I want my lifestyle to look like this. What's the most efficient model to achieve that outcome, rather than like, I'm desperate to run a course-based business? Because you could, but it's just going to be incredibly difficult.
We're not going to throw rocks at our enemies and say that high ticket's shit or low ticket's shit or whatever. It's simply that there are a set of parameters that would make a business work with this kind of Athlean-X model. And that is, you've either got a large pool of organic leads that you can constantly rotate and sell stuff to, i.e. doing it without ads, and so your margins are close to zero. So you're not running into this problem that Johnny said of your cost per acquisition of a customer is £100, but you're selling a £50 product, and therefore you've got to make sure the average customer pays twice what they pay on the front end, which is a scary situation. The other condition is that you've got massive balls and you don't mind losing on the front end.
Well, and loads of cash.
Yeah, the third condition, you predicted it well. So is that you've got a very large pool of cash that you can afford to just sink at the front of the funnel. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. If you look at the Bezos model, he ran a multi-$100 million loss for about 10 years before Amazon started to become profitable. So, if you can, the person who can pay the most to acquire a customer wins. And if you can afford to just absolutely sink cash into something in the front end to acquire a strong customer base, then great. But I don't think either of us have got the stomach for that. I think you have to really know what you're doing.
It still places the onus on whether all these like SaaS businesses or software companies that acquire a load of funding up front, plow a lot of that funding into development and marketing to acquire customers, it's with the view that they're acquiring monthly recurring income, right? Or that those customers have a value long term. if you acquire a list of 100 people who buy a 50 quid thing, but you made a 50 quid loss on every single transaction, that's only good if you have something else to sell them and they want the other thing. Right? Otherwise, you just spent loads of money for no reason. Spent loads of money for loads of effort and loads of faff and maybe some happy people, but you can't live off that, right? So, interestingly, with Kino Body, I don't know whether he still does, but for a period of time, he did run ads to his products. And when he started running ads to his products, he changed the funnel to, so we bought a few of Kino Body's products, and they're very good, but you'll think, oh, I'm buying a £37 Warrior Shred program or whatever. You buy that, and then it's, well, do you want this as well? Do you want my abs program? Do you want my cardio program? Do you want my supplement guide? Do you want? And then suddenly he's trying to sell you supplements. He's trying to sell you apparel, right?
I mean, it's not going to work without the supplements.
Yeah, it's all within minutes of clicking buy on the first thing. Why is he doing that? Because he's up against, like, what is my, even with an ads agency running his marketing, even with a funnel is highly optimized, I still have to pay a certain amount of money to acquire a customer. And if I'm in the red on that transaction, I'm using business reserves to fund that. And that's for businesses like these, like for small businesses with a few people in them doing like a couple of 100,000 or like up to $1 million a year, you don't really want to be in the situation where you're eating into cash just to acquire sales, really, if you can avoid it, because you don't need to.
So we've covered the cons of doing the low end front tripwire offer effectively, or the high ticket stuff in one of the previous episodes. What's the solution? It's the middle ground. So going for a mid ticket program where you might be selling 6 weeks up front, you can break even on the front end, or you can make a small profit on the front end, knowing that, especially in your case, Matt, I know that the stuff you put out is fantastic. And so you've got a very high retention rate, very high amount of trust that you've built with people. And so they're more likely to stay for longer. And then as you get more and more people through there, you acquire more data, it becomes more reliable, knowing, okay, the average person stays for 10 months. Then you've got a couple more variables to play with. You can either increase the price on the front end, you can do what you can on the delivery side to make people stick around for longer. And we cover that in one of our modules behind the paywall in our top secret Black Ops business program, on how to improve your retention rates. Or you can play around with how much someone pays up front. And then you can start to scale with ads more confidently.
Yeah. So that, like, I suppose we're biased, aren't we? Because that's what we teach. So obviously we think that's the best way of doing it. But I think...
But we've tried the low end and the high end.
The others, yeah.
It's not as if we just think, throw a dart at a map and think that'll do.
There's just there's certain things that you can't really influence beyond a certain baseline threshold. And one of those things is like how much a Facebook ad costs, really. Like, you can influence that a bit, but you're not going to be getting like 1 penny clicks, right? So you're up against this. Like, I'm probably going to be paying, if I'm pretty good at this, I'm probably going to be paying £1 to £2 a click from someone who's interested in what I'm doing. So what are you going to do with those clicks? That's the question, right? What is the most efficient way to maximize the value of those clicks for your business today and over a 5-10 year lifespan? And I think if you're boring like me and you find this sort of thing exciting, then get a spreadsheet out. You know what the cost per click is. Figure out what has to happen in each of those models. Like, if you want to make 10 grand profit, let's say, look at all of the models and figure out what's the most efficient way to make 10 grand profit, and then divide the profit by the hours required to maintain the system, and the highest hourly rate, that's the one to go with, right? And that's why, I mean, if you're going to argue that, like, you don't want to optimize for revenue per hour, then I think there's like something fundamentally missing in what you're trying to do. But that's why high ticket has problems. That's why low ticket has problems. That's why this middle ground is the highest throughput, most efficient way of doing things.
Yeah, I think people get the dollar signs when they see testimonials of people claiming that they made 20 or 30 grand from high ticket model. But remember, 2 of those variables that I mentioned there, which is retention, extremely low with high ticket because you've blown your load early. It's very hard to try and deliver on that and for someone to re-sign up again. And then the hourly rate, you end up having to spend quite a lot of hours on a client that's spent high ticket. You can't just leave them with an automated members portal because they could go somewhere else and get that for £20.
I wrote an email with an analogy in that I'll share just on the high ticket thing. I actually heard it from another coach. I really liked it. But imagine you and I went we went to stay in a hotel next week, and it was 5 stars, super premium. Like it was, we'd really pushed the boat out, and we stayed in this hotel. And you got there, and you go into the foyer, and there's no one there. It's a self-service check-in. You're like, that's a bit annoying, but that's okay. And then you expect people to like come and take your bags and give you a service. None of that. You got to go up the stairs, get in the room. No coffee machine, no shortbread. TV's average.
No shortbread.
No shortbread, and it gets worse. No shortbread. You go downstairs. There's not really a restaurant. There's no breakfast included. There's no pool. There's no slippers. There's no dressing gown. 5-star hotel. You'd be like, what the hell is this?
Oh, you're taking the piss.
This is unbelievable.
I mean, you had to rub salt in the wound. After the shortbread, I come down and there's no slip as well. So
no slippers. So straight away you're thinking like, negative TripAdvisor review. Maybe want my money back. Never staying here again. You'd probably go out of your way, like while you were there. If I wasn't there, you'd probably text me to tell me how bad it was, right?
Even though it's like on the face of it, it's not that bad, but the customer experience is a function of expectations versus what's delivered.
Exactly.
So,
well, so now
if you'd paid 30 quid for that,
hang on. Now flip the script and imagine that we'd pulled off the A1 because we're tired. First hotel we could find. It's one of those budget hotels. You go in, and it's largely the same, but you go into the room, and there's some slippers, there's some shortbread, maybe breakfast included. You'd be like, this is incredible. Like, I can't believe that. Everything else might have been exactly the same, right? But because what we paid determined our expectations, it turned the same experience into something, or rather, the 5-star hotel has to do everything right. Like they can't get anything wrong to just meet our expectations. What do they have to do to exceed them? It's insane, right? Whereas the budget hotel or the affordable hotel, they stick a pair of slippers in the room, positive reviews.
Bob is your uncle.
Bob is your
I
uncle.
pissed all over your story there. I'm like the person who tells the punchline before.
Here I come.